Ricky Berry made 7 three-pointers in one NBA game. He had 2 years left on a 3-year contract reportedly worth $1 million. He had just moved into a home valued at roughly $360,000, and there would be no second season. On the morning of August 14, 1989, Berry's wife returned to that new house and found a note. The Sacramento Kings' 24-year-old first-round pick was gone. Hours earlier, friends had been eating pizza, swimming, and playing video games with him. That same morning, Ricky had called a teammate to ask about working out. Nothing about the visible future looked finished. That is what makes this story so disturbing. How does a 6'8" rookie shoot better than 40% from three, start the final 15 games, average more than 18 points down the stretch, strengthen his body during the summer, and never arrive for year 2? What was hiding behind the new contract, the new house, the jokes, the racing cars, and a smile that friends believed? Did the people around Ricky Berry miss a warning? Or did success convince everybody that a warning was impossible? The note provided fragments. Newspapers supplied rumors. Friends searched backward through conversations that had sounded completely ordinary when they happened. But no single explanation ever closed the case inside the hearts of the people who knew him. Before the newspapers were finished, the marriage, his parents, the mortgage, one final argument, and rumors of another relationship would all be dragged into the same mystery. Ricky's friends had one problem with those explanations. None of them made every piece fit. So this is not a story about an NBA career that failed. The career was beginning to work. It is the story of a future becoming brighter in public while something private moved in the opposite direction. And to understand why there was no second season, we first have to understand how much Ricky Berry appeared ready to become. Ricky Allen Berry was born in Lansing, Michigan on October 6, 1964. Basketball was waiting before he understood what waiting meant. His father, Bill Berry, had played at Michigan State. Coaching became the family profession, and the Berry household eventually moved west to California as Bill built a career from high school gyms to junior college, assistant positions, and finally the head job at San Jose State. That sounds like the perfect construction of an NBA son. It was not that simple. Ricky admired an athlete, but his hero was not Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Julius Erving, or even another basketball player. It was Walter Payton. Payton ran as if every yard had to be earned through somebody else's body. He played hurt. He trained relentlessly. He made violence look disciplined. Ricky changed his college number from 21 to 34 because 34 belonged to Walter Payton. What did he admire most? The work ethic. Ricky later admitted that football may have been the game he truly wanted. "If I wouldn't have grown this tall, I'd have played football," he said. "I love the contact. I guess that's why I foul out so much." There was humor in the line, but also a warning about the kind of competitor Sacramento would eventually draft. Berry looked quiet. He did not play quiet. He wanted contact. He wanted the argument inside a possession. He wanted to prove that a long, narrow body could survive a game built around stronger men. And because he was the coach's son, every possession carried another audience. His father knew exactly how difficult that could become. When Ricky left Live Oak High School, he did not go directly to San Jose State. He went to Oregon State. Bill Berry initially did not want to coach his own son. The elder Berry had read a story about another father coach losing control and striking his son during a game. The possibility frightened him. "I could see myself doing that," Bill admitted. That quote reveals the danger before father and son ever shared a college bench. Love does not make coaching easier. Sometimes love removes the distance a coach needs. Every correction can sound personal. Every minute can look like favoritism. Every benching can follow the family home. Teammates watch for special treatment. The son watches for the extra punishment his father uses to prove there is no special treatment. Ricky spent his freshman season at Oregon State. Then he transferred to San Jose State. Bill explained the decision with a sentence that carried both affection and pressure. "Even though he likes Oregon State, he loves me." Ricky came home to play for his father. Now he had to become good enough that nobody could say love had placed him on the floor. Transfer rules forced him to wait before playing. That year away did not create national attention. It created anticipation inside one family and one program. When Ricky finally appeared for San Jose State, he did not slowly grow into the role. He began attacking the record book. At 6'8", Barry was difficult to classify. He could handle the ball like a guard, shoot from the perimeter, pass, run the floor, and use his size against smaller defenders. Put a shooting guard on him, and he could take that player inside. Put a forward on him, and he could pull the defender away from the basket. That kind of versatility sounds normal today because modern basketball has been rebuilt around tall creators and positionless offense. In the mid-1980s, it looked suspicious. Coaches liked categories: point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, center. Ricky Barry kept asking a more dangerous question. What if he could punish whichever answer the defense chose? In his first active season at San Jose State, he averaged 18.5 points. The next year, he rose above 20. Then came the summer of 1987. The United States assembled a Pan American Games team filled with names basketball fans already recognized or soon would: David Robinson, Danny Manning, Rex Chapman, Keith Smart, and Ricky Barry from San Jose State. People looked at that roster and asked the obvious question: who was Ricky Barry? Coach Denny Crum had an answer. People just wanted to know who he was, Crum said. I don't think they questioned my judgment in putting him on the Pan Am team or starting him. They just hadn't heard about him. Starting him, not carrying him at the end of the bench, not introducing him to a larger stage, one harmless minute at a time. Crum started Barry in all 7 games. Ricky did it while dealing with 2 injured ankles. Think about the contradiction. The unknown player on a team full of future NBA names was trusted enough to start every game, even when his body gave the coach reasons to choose somebody safer. That was Ricky Barry's career in miniature. People did not know what to call him until the ball went up. Then they had to find somebody capable of guarding him. The United States reached the gold medal game. Brazil, led by the fearless shooting of Oscar Schmidt, produced one of the famous international upsets of the era. America settled for silver. Ricky returned to San Jose without gold, but no longer as a private local talent. He had started beside future stars on a national team. He had played through pain. He had survived the first serious question about whether he belonged, and his senior season became an answer written in numbers. 24.2 points per game, 7.2 rebounds, 44.5% from 3. Those were not the numbers of a one-dimensional gunner. They belonged to a 6'8" problem with range, touch, passing vision, and enough size to punish smaller defenders. Over 3 seasons at San Jose State, Barry scored 1,767 points and became the leading scorer in school history. Long before NBA teams rebuilt their offenses around the three-point line, Ricky Barry was showing what a tall shooter could do with space, but the father-son story never became comfortable. Some teammates believed Bill favored Ricky. Others believed the opposite, that the coach worked his son harder and criticized him more severely because everybody was watching. Both accusations can exist at the same time because neither is only about minutes. They are about perception. And once a locker room believes the coach's son occupies a different set of rules, every decision becomes evidence. The tension around the program eventually erupted. 10 San Jose State players boycotted and accused Bill Barry of harsh treatment. The season ended with the father's coaching future in doubt, even as the son's professional future opened. Just think about the trap. Ricky had become the greatest scorer in school history under his father. That success could be used to praise Bill. It could also be used to accuse him of building the program around his son. And when the rest of the program fractured, Ricky could not separate being the star from being the coach's child. Was Sacramento about to rescue him from that pressure? or was staying in Northern California going to keep every family tension close enough to drive home? On June 28, 1988, the Sacramento Kings supplied the next answer. The Kings had acquired Atlanta's first-round selection in a transaction involving veteran star Reggie Miller. With the 18th pick in the draft, Sacramento selected Ricky Berry. The hometown region had an NBA first-rounder. The coach's son had become a professional, and the contract made the future look official. 3 years. Reported value, $1 million. For a 23-year-old in 1988, that was not simply employment, it was confirmation. The records were real, the Pan American starts were real, the scouts were real. The family sacrifice had produced a first-round contract. Now Ricky Berry only had to prove that his unusual game could survive the NBA. Only, Sacramento was not a gentle place for a rookie to learn. The Kings were entering their 4th season in California's capital and still trying to convince the city that professional basketball had found a permanent home. They had won only 24 games the year before. Bill Russell had moved from the sideline into the front office. Jerry Reynolds inherited a roster full of uncertainty. Ricky Berry did not enter a machine that knew exactly how to use him. He entered a franchise still trying to understand itself. At 6'8" and a little over 200 pounds, Berry looked long enough for the front court and skilled enough for the back court. That versatility had confused college defenders. It also gave NBA coaches more ways to find faults. Too thin for power forwards, not quick enough for every guard, an average defender, a beautiful shooter who still needed to survive the other end of the floor. One scout later explained the offensive problem Berry created. If a shooting guard defended him, Ricky could post that player. If a small forward took him, Ricky could pull the bigger man outside. You were either damned if you did and damned if you didn't defensively, Dave Bullwinkle said. But Sacramento first had to believe the mismatch belonged on the court. During 8 of the Kings' first 20 games, Berry did not play a single minute, 8 nights in uniform without entering the game. For a first-round pick who had started every Pan American game on damaged ankles, the NBA introduced itself through waiting. He watched veterans make mistakes he believed he could correct. He watched the clock disappear. He heard coaches discuss strength and defense, while the skill that had earned the contract sat beside them. This is where a promising rookie can become dangerous in either direction. He can accept the bench so completely that the organization forgets him. Or he can decide every practice is a trial. Ricky chose the trial. The soft-spoken public personality disappeared when competition began. During one practice, the quiet rookie finally exploded and fought veteran teammate Derek Smith. So forget the passive, delicate image suggested by his voice. He was proud, he was physical, he was tired of waiting. And he kept repeating a sentence that would become more painful with time. I am better than this. At first, the sentence meant the bench. It meant the body coaches considered too weak. It meant the defensive mistakes. It meant being the 18th pick instead of a player the offense had been designed to feature. Ricky believed work could close the distance between what Sacramento saw and what he knew. That belief began producing evidence. On February 9, 1989, the Golden State Warriors came to Sacramento. Berry entered the game as a rookie, still trying to turn scattered opportunity into a permanent role. Then the shots began falling. One three-pointer, then another, 7 of them. 7 three-pointers in one game on 14 attempts in an era when many teams treated 14 threes as an irresponsible total for an entire night. Berry scored 34 points. That was not a modern offense feeding a specialist from the corners. It was 1989, with defenders still trained to protect the paint first and coaches still suspicious of players who lived too far from the basket. Ricky Berry turned distance into an argument. How do you bench 6'8" when 6'8" can do that? How do you guard him with a smaller player when he can see over the defense? How do you use a forward when Barry can drag that forward into space and release the ball before the contest arrives? The 7-3s game did not make him a star overnight. It did something more important. It proved the strange college skill worked against NBA defenders. The Kings began giving him more responsibility. Barry started the final 15 games and averaged 18.2 points over his last 11 appearances. The rookie who had spent 8 early nights in uniform without playing was suddenly one of Sacramento's most promising scorers. Early Barry was waiting, late Barry was arriving. For the full season, he made 40.6% of his three-pointers, one of the strongest marks in the league. In 1989, that was not a specialist quietly standing in a modern corner. It was a rookie forcing an older game to make room for what came next. And Ricky could do more than shoot. He could handle the ball, attack a closing defender, and use his height against smaller guards. That is why Kenny Smith later described him in 5 unforgettable words. Reggie Miller with a handle. Henry Turner offered another comparison. Ricky Barry was Peja Stojakovic before Peja Stojakovic. 2 comparisons, 1 picture, a tall shooter ahead of his time who could create instead of waiting for somebody else to create for him. Would Ricky have become either one? Nobody knows, but this was no longer imaginary potential. 7 threes in 1 game, better than 40% for the season. 15 consecutive starts to finish the year. Sacramento was already watching the question turn into an answer. Ed Pinckney watched the transformation. He turned himself into this tremendous three-point shooter, Pinckney said. He was draining shots from all over the place. Late in his first year, he was finally figuring it out and feeling good about himself. Finally figuring it out. Those words are the engine of this entire story. Ricky did not end his rookie year defeated by professional basketball. He ended it understanding professional basketball better than he had when it began. During the summer, he trained to add strength. Scout Jim Hadnot saw thicker legs, a stronger upper body, and a young player willing to attack the weakness everybody had identified. Hadnot summarized the future in 6 words. He had it all in front of him. 2 contract years, a larger role, a body getting stronger, a shot already ahead of its time. No second season. The contradiction becomes more brutal with every achievement because there is no basketball explanation for the ending. Sacramento was not preparing to release him. His contract was not expiring. His knees had not betrayed him. The coach had not told him the league was finished. He was 24 years old and moving upward. So if basketball was not closing, what was? The easy mistake is to imagine that Ricky Barry had no life outside the game. That explanation fits many athlete tragedies because professional sports can swallow a personality until the player cannot identify himself without a uniform. Ricky was different. He loved cars almost as much as basketball. Maybe more. He loved racing, engines, gadgets, tape players, arcade machines, and Nintendo. He once raced Kenny Smith through the enormous parking lot outside Arco Arena. He went to Northern California sprint car events and helped warm cars on dirt tracks. The quiet basketball player became alive around speed. He did not only want to own expensive cars, he wanted to understand the business around them. Ricky briefly worked at an Acura dealership and later at a Mazda Volkswagen dealership in Davis because he imagined owning a dealership someday. That is important. He had constructed a picture after basketball. It had a showroom, a race car, and enough electronic toys to make Al Joyner call him Inspector Gadget. Joyner remembered him as a big kid. Video games were not a distraction Ricky hid from serious adults. They were part of the future he had described even before NBA money arrived. When somebody once asked him to imagine a large professional salary, Ricky pictured a house with a room devoted to video games and a race car in the garage. Then the contract came. Then the house came. The fantasy was becoming an address. Ricky and Valerie moved into an expensive home in Carmichael during the summer of 1989. Contemporary reports placed the value around $350,000 to $360,000. The wooden sold sign still stood on the lawn. That sign may be the most merciless object in the entire story. To the neighborhood, it announced a rival. A young NBA player had purchased the future. New house, swimming pool, video games, friends, cars, 2 years left on the contract. What could possibly be wrong? That was the trap. The house could prove where Ricky lived. It could not explain what was happening inside it. Ricky and Valerie had married in May 1988. Friends later said they eloped without the approval of Ricky's parents. They also said his mother, Clarice, did not accept the marriage easily. Now place the geography around them. Ricky's professional team was in Sacramento. His parents lived close enough that distance could not protect anybody from tension. His father had coached him in college and remained deeply connected to his basketball life. The same regional familiarity that allowed a first-round pick to stay near home may have kept every unresolved family relationship inside driving distance. Jeff Logan, one of Ricky's closest friends, later said he believed almost any franchise outside Sacramento or Golden State might have reduced the pressure. That is one friend's interpretation, not a final answer, but it exposes another contradiction. Fans treat playing near home as a gift. For Ricky Berry, home may have been the place where basketball, marriage, parents, approval, and expectation collided without enough space between them. The father-son relationship remained especially complicated. Bill Berry had helped transform Ricky into San Jose State's greatest scorer. He had also just left a program fractured by player protest. Reports described strain between father and son, yet Bill had recently accepted work connected to the Kings. The basketball world was pulling them apart and placing them together at the same time. Did Ricky want his father's approval? Almost certainly. Did that desire explain everything that followed? No. One demanding father, one strained marriage, one expensive new house. The ingredients were already sitting there, waiting for the newspapers. After August 14th, the private life of Ricky Berry became public property, and the rumors arrived fast. Arguments inside the marriage, friends saying Ricky had been unfaithful, one local report pushing into even uglier territory with an anonymously sourced allegation about a teenage girl and a telephone call. Was every story true? Nobody could prove that. Was the marriage genuinely under pressure? Yes. Ricky and Valerie had already acknowledged that the NBA schedule and long stretches apart created strain. But the public wanted more than strain. It wanted a culprit. The wife, the parents, another relationship, the mortgage, the final argument. Pick one, circle it in red, and suddenly an unbearable mystery looks solved. Except the people closest to Ricky knew the rumors, knew the note existed, and still could not give the world one clean answer. The final weekend began with speed. On Saturday night, Ricky went to sprint car races in Calistoga with Bobby Girould and Girould's girlfriend, Kim Miura. This was not an NBA appearance arranged by a sponsor. Ricky genuinely loved the track. Through Girould, he had met drivers, learned the culture, and even helped warm the cars before competition. The long ride home created the kind of private space where friends say things they do not say inside a crowded house. Girould later remembered that they talked the entire way. "We talked about all kinds of stuff," he said. "Some pretty deep stuff, but nothing ever came up." Nothing ever came up. Afterward, every friend would return to sentences like that and turn them over as if a hidden message might fall out. Was Ricky trying to say something? Did Girould miss a change in tone? Was the deep conversation a final attempt to be heard, or simply three young people talking during a drive? Memory becomes unfair after tragedy. Ordinary moments are dragged into court and forced to defend themselves. A pause becomes a warning. A joke becomes a disguise. A goodbye becomes suspicious because nobody realized it was a goodbye. Girould's honest conclusion was the most unsettling one. He seemed like the least troubled guy in the world. Sunday continued the illusion. Ricky spent time with people he loved. Friends gathered at the new Carmichael house. They swam, they played around, they ate pizza, they played Nintendo. The sold sign was still standing outside, while the new homeowners filled the place with exactly the life Ricky had once imagined. Inside, Al Joyner called him Inspector Gadget because Ricky always had some electronic toy in his hands. If it was not a video game, it was a tape player or another device he wanted to understand. He was just a big kid, Joyner said. That afternoon, Joyner and Ricky even staged a playful boxing match. They went round after round, complete with an imaginary bell, then jumped into the pool, laughing, competing, moving. Then something changed for a moment. After they climbed out of the water, Ricky handed Joyner a towel and sat on a bench. The energy dropped. Ricky became quiet. Joyner looked at his friend and felt what he later described as something heavy. Not a confession, not a direct warning. A look? Joyner asked what was wrong. Ricky did not offer an answer that sounded dangerous. The moment passed. Conversation returned. Before long, they were joking again. What should Joyner have done? Called the Kings because his friend sat quietly after swimming? Alerted the family because a 24-year-old man looked burdened for a few seconds? Refused to leave until Ricky explained every private pressure inside his marriage? That is the cruelty of hindsight. It gives ordinary people information they did not have and then asks why they failed to act on it. Joyner knew Ricky well. They had talked about family, relationships, childhood, belief, and the future. He believed that if something truly overwhelming were happening, Ricky would tell him. But Ricky had built a public personality around control. Eric Solney, his former San Jose State assistant coach, called him poker-faced as a player and as a person. No one really knew what was inside, Solney said. Ricky had learned to hide frustration in plain sight. As a coach's son, he had practiced that skill for years. Show frustration, and teammates call you entitled. Show pain, and opponents attack it. Show doubt, and a coach, especially your father, asks whether you are strong enough. Basketball rewarded the same emotional discipline that made private trouble harder to detect. By Sunday evening, friends were still in the house eating pizza and playing games. Then Valerie came home. An argument followed. Reports differed in their details, but the basic sequence remained. Husband and wife fought, and Valerie spent the night elsewhere. The press would later circle that argument in red and point it directly toward the ending. It was dramatic, it was convenient, and by itself, it still explained nothing. Kevin Johnson knew both of them and refused to transform ordinary marital trouble into a complete explanation. From what he had seen, the relationship contained nothing more extreme than the problems many young couples face. That does not make the argument irrelevant. It makes it insufficient. The marriage was under pressure. Friends believed family disapproval intensified that pressure. There were allegations involving another relationship. Money on the new home may have added concern. All of those pieces belong in the story. None of them can honestly pretend to be the whole story. Then Monday morning arrived, August 14th, 1989. The date had not yet become a headline. To Ricky Berry, it still looked like a summer workday. He called Henry Turner. Ricky wanted to know whether Turner was going to work out in Sacramento that morning. Read that carefully. Work out. The language of a second season. The body needed preparation. Training camp would come. The role had to grow. Ricky had spent the summer strengthening his legs and upper body because NBA coaches had supplied a problem, and he intended to solve it. Turner was in Los Angeles. He told Ricky he would return later in the week. Nothing in the call sounded unusual. Nothing seemed wrong, Turner remembered. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Then he explained why the conversation felt so normal. We ball players. That is what we do. Work out. Get stronger. Prepare for the next season. That is what ball players do. And it was the last conversation Turner ever had with Ricky Berry. Later that morning, Valerie returned to the house. She found Ricky and the note. The official finding confirmed that his death had not been accidental. He was 24 years old. 2 years remained on the contract. There would be no second season. The note was partly typed and largely handwritten. Later reporting said it spoke about love, family, and frustration inside the marriage. To Bobby Giroux, those pages offered insight. They did not offer one complete answer. The headlines wanted one by dinner. The new house became evidence. The marriage became evidence. The phone rumors became evidence. The father became evidence. Every fact that had looked ordinary on Sunday was reclassified as a warning on Monday. That is how a mystery becomes gossip. The public wanted one secret ugly enough to make the ending feel proportionate. Ricky Berry left behind no clean villain and no convenient explanation. He left behind people arguing with the scale of it. Ed Pinkney said hearing the news felt like being struck in the head with a crowbar. Henry Turner received a call from a Kings secretary only hours after talking about the workout. "Ricky is gone," she told him. At Arco Arena, the Kings shut their offices. A handmade sign outside told visitors there had been a death in the Kings family and the building was closed for the day. Inside the organization, adults whose profession required them to speak in public lost the ability to finish sentences. Coach Jerry Reynolds approached a microphone with a prepared statement. "My prayers," that was as far as he could get. He blinked back tears, left the podium, and allowed someone else to speak. The official Kings statement called Ricky kind, thoughtful, sensitive, caring, soft-spoken, spirited, and talented. Those words were not marketing copy created for a rookie introduction. They were an organization trying to describe a person after statistics had become useless. Bill Berry was at the Kings offices when the news arrived. Think about that timing. The father whose career had shaped Ricky's basketball life had recently joined the professional organization now employing his son. Bill was discussing his own work with the Kings while the family received the call that destroyed every ordinary plan. For years, basketball had tied father and son together. Now it placed Bill inside the building that had been preparing Ricky's second season. There is no quote capable of carrying what happened in that room. Bill Russell went to console the family. Kevin Johnson arrived to offer whatever help he and his family could provide. Teammates and friends converged on the new house, where the sold sign still announced a beginning the people inside could no longer recognize. Then silence took control. Ricky's parents and sister arranged a private burial in Lansing, Michigan, the city where he had been born. His Kings teammates waited for information. They wanted to attend. They wanted to say goodbye. The call never came. Henry Turner described the hurt years later. "This is our teammate. This is our buddy," he said. But it was as if they packed everything and left. No phone calls, nothing. No one had a chance to say goodbye. The family chose privacy. The locker room inherited silence. No funeral together, no final gathering, no shared goodbye. Then the NBA schedule performed its usual act of indifference. The next season arrived. Training camp opened. Players competed for minutes. The Kings played again. Ricky's locker remained absent from a future he had helped everybody imagine. And the organization made no major public reference to what had happened when the new season began. Perhaps the silence was intended as respect. To teammates, it could also feel like erasure. How does a franchise explain that the first-round pick who had just begun to break out will never walk through the door? How does a coach discuss range, spacing, and lineups when a 24-year-old shooter has disappeared from every diagram? How does Henry Turner return to the gym after the workout Ricky tried to schedule? There was no second season, but for the people who loved Ricky Berry, the missing season never stopped beginning. For the next year, friends searched backward. The pool, the drive from Calistoga, the argument, the house, his parents, the quiet face, the questions about faith Ricky had asked Kevin Johnson. After the ending, every detail could be made to look like a warning. Before it, none had looked large enough to stop the day. Gerald had talked with him for hours. Joyner had seen the strange pause beside the pool. Turner had heard his voice Monday morning. Valerie had lived inside the marriage. Bill Berry had raised him for 24 years. If one clean explanation existed, somebody in that circle should have been able to name it. Nobody could. The uncertainty refused to behave like a sports story. Missed shot, lost game. Action, result, replay. The public could see Ricky's ending. It could not replay the private path toward it. Kevin Johnson listed the evidence that had made Ricky appear protected: money, marriage, a car, a new home, youth, and a promising career. Then he asked the question everybody was asking. What could he want? It sounded compassionate. It also exposed the assumption surrounding Ricky's story, that an NBA contract was emotional armor. His life appeared to follow a promise generations of young black athletes had been told to believe. Work hard, honor your parents, earn the scholarship, play through injured ankles, become a first-round pick, buy the house. Everything will be all right. Ricky completed almost every step. When everything was not all right, the gossip went hunting for somebody to blame. But what if no person around Ricky held the entire explanation? What if the crisis was made from several pressures, private interpretations, and one irreversible morning that no outside observer could reconstruct completely? That answer denied the public the villain it wanted. 1 year later, Ricky's friends still refused to manufacture one. They had read what newspapers said about the marriage. They knew the family relationships. They knew he worried about responsibilities. They knew the note had focused partly on personal frustration, and still they would not pretend those pieces added up to one simple cause. They had known the actual man, and the actual man was larger than the worst morning of his life. Ricky volunteered at basketball camps during his final summer. Children knew him as the enormous NBA player willing to stop, joke, teach, and chase them around a gym. Years before becoming a national basketball writer, Mark Spears had been one of those children. Spears remembered waiting for Ricky after San Jose State games. He remembered Ricky giving him time. He remembered stealing the ball when Ricky carelessly held it under one arm at camp and earning the player's respect. Spears wore number 34 because Ricky wore number 34. That is a different form of legacy. Not 7 threes, not a contract. A child choosing a number because a local star had treated him like he mattered. Barry became a godfather to a friend's daughter. Teammates remembered his love for children. Dealership workers remembered his curiosity. Racing friends remembered his excitement at the track. These details complicate the cheap portrait of a man with no imagined future. Ricky had imagined futures everywhere. Second NBA season. Bigger body. Larger role. Car dealership. Race cars. Children learning basketball. The tragedy is not that he lacked possible tomorrows. It is that possible tomorrows did not feel available to him in the moment that mattered. Professional basketball in 1989 had blunt categories for private trouble: healthy or injured, tough or soft, focused or distracted. A Kings spokesman said Ricky had not been receiving treatment for emotional problems or stress. Jeff Logan used a smaller word: stressed. Minutes, marriage, payments, parents. Place each pressure in a separate sentence, and none sounds large enough to stop the day. Place them inside one silent person, and nobody outside can calculate the weight. Ricky's poker face helped him compete. It also allowed every observer to grade the wrong performance. They saw the basketball player becoming stronger. They did not know the private man required help. Years passed, and silence became part of the Berry family story. Bill Berry later worked with the Houston Rockets. Kenny Smith, Ricky's former Sacramento teammate, became a champion in Houston and spent years around Ricky's father. They never talked about Ricky. Think about that. One man had called Ricky Reggie Miller with a handle. The other had built that player through 3 college seasons. They shared professional basketball space after Ricky was gone, and there was no comfortable doorway into the subject. One person close to the family later described Ricky as the topic that remained off limits. Silence protected the family. It also allowed public memory to replace the person with one sentence. Ricky Berry played one NBA season and died at 24. That sentence is accurate. It is also completely inadequate. It does not contain Walter Payton, 2 injured ankles at the Pan American Games, 7 3-pointers against Golden State, Inspector Gadget, Nintendo, sprint cars, or the future car dealership. It does not contain the boy who wore number 34 because Ricky had treated him like he mattered. It does not contain the workout call or the teammates who waited for funeral information that never arrived. The NBA record book preserves Berry in a single row. 64 games, 21 starts, 40.6% from 3. Then the row ends. Numbers make that ending look complete. It was not complete. The beginning and the end of that season described 2 different players. Early Berry was waiting, late Berry was arriving. Sacramento had begun discovering a 6'8" shooter built for an NBA that had not caught up yet. The final 15 starts were the experiment. The last 11 games were the evidence. The stronger summer body was supposed to be the next phase. Then came the note. There was nothing romantic about what followed. A young wife returned to a new home and entered a life she would carry alone afterward. A father received the worst possible news inside his son's professional workplace. A locker room lost a teammate without a goodbye. Friends spent decades interrogating ordinary memories. And a 24-year-old man lost every future other people could still see for him. Here is the mistake the public made. It saw visible success and mistook it for complete knowledge. We saw the contract and believed we understood his security. We saw the house and believed we understood his marriage. We saw the jokes and believed we understood his mood. We saw the workout call and believed we understood his plans. We saw the final 11 games and believed we understood his future. Every visible fact was real. None was enough. Bobby Girould continued returning to the racetrack where he had taken Ricky. Decades later, he still thought about the friend who rode beside him and talked through the night without revealing what was coming. He had a light about him even in his short stay, Girould said. He lit up a room. Then he added the line that may be the only honest ending. 30 years later, I still think about this dude all the time. Not the mystery. The dude. The person. Ricky Berry made 7 3-pointers in one NBA game. He finished his rookie season by becoming the player he had insisted he was. I am better than this. He was right. He had 2 years left on the contract. He had a second season waiting. The record book contains no second row. And the people who loved him have been living with that missing season ever since.